I hope you are having a phenomenal day. So today I'm having a bit of a headache, and I have a lot of work to do. So basically, I decided I was going to just have a bit of a fun conversation with you. How to not write chapter 1. You remember we did this for the Cyborg Tinker, okay? And we also did this for the Twilight. Now, with the Twilight one, we determined, because you see, this chapter 1 is literally the worst chapter 1 in epic fantasy history. The epic fantasy genre, it has books, a lot of books written in it. Out of all those books, I have never read a chapter 1 as bad as this one. It literally takes the cake. This one creates the cake and then takes it. It's so bad, it's irrevocably bad. The author should have, how did this, man, if this could have gotten published, you can get published. Dude, I want you to go into the toilet, or if you're a woman, whatever, if you're a freaking alien, I want you to go into the toilet, I want you to take a shit, and then I want you to send that shit to the best publisher you can find. That shit would be worth more value than this chapter. This chapter pisses me off. I learned so much by reading it because it teaches you how to not write a chapter 1. It's so bad it teaches you, okay? It's so bad that I think every professor across the world and across the planet should 100% recommend this chapter 1 as the chapter 1 to read, so that you can learn how to also not write terrible chapter 1s, okay? I am sorry for the outburst, but this chapter frustrated me so much when I was reading this book several months ago. One of the longest reviews in this YouTube channel, in fact, the longest review in this YouTube channel, is that review for this book. This book was so bad, I could not comprehend how it got published. The sexism, it's built into the world building, it's built into the magic, and frankly, it was so severe, it made me question the author's character. But number 2, let's talk about this chapter 1, because this video is going to be how to not write a chapter 1. First of all, please do not insert a freaking prophecy into the freaking first page. The tome shall be read first by a seed of the victors who, years later, shall become the sworn enemy of those same victorious ones. The sire of this seed shall, having abandoned the victor's cause, live as an outcast. The six of the... Look, I'm not gonna finish this shit. This is a prophecy. Don't do this. Prophecies in epic fantasy are garbage, and I am done with people telling me, oh, but they can be executed well. It takes extreme skill to execute them well. It takes a lot of skill to execute them well. A skill that likely I don't have, a skill that likely you don't have, a skill that likely the next million people do not have, because it's not easy to execute this shit well. This is called writing craft speaking, Chekhov's gun. Chekhov's gun is basically, if in the first chapter you describe something, that should really become relevant later, okay? If it will not become relevant later, please don't describe it. We don't need it in the story, because word economy is real, okay? When you are writing a story, word economy is real. So this is Chekhov's gun. Basically, what it's trying to do is create tension. Create tension. I want you to pay attention. I want you to pay attention. Do you really think the best method in the world is to create the best method to create tension is through a prophecy? No. You could have a baby walking toward fire, and that would be 10 billion times more effective at creating tension. So don't insert a freaking prophecy into your book, because it's the work of idiots from history. You can be better than those idiots, okay? You can be far better than them. Anyhow, the chapter begins, true peace of mind comes only when my heart and actions are aligned with true principles and values. This is terrible. The protagonist, his name is Tristan, right? He was genetic stock. I'll actually give you a bit of a wink wink, okay? You remember in Twilight when we read that first chapter, why it was terrible? The reason why it was terrible is because that first chapter did not start with the interest, okay? The interest, for instance, I'll give you an example. The interest is, let's say your story is about finding, let's say your story is about finding the valuable rock that makes it extends the life of the king. Okay, the king sent you on a mission to fetch him this special magical rock. It will make him immortal. Okay, so where could you start the story? This is the main premise of the plot. Where could you start the story? You could start the story by describing the tension in the room when you walk into the room. Okay, you have been summoned to the king, and now the king in the first chapter will give you the mission synopsis. Okay, he will inform you what the mission is, where the rock is, how to get it, and he might give you allies to work with you, but you are supposed to lead them. Okay, you understand? You can start the story by describing the tension in the room, but please, like Twilight, please don't start describing, you not waking up, but you getting on your wagon, traveling across the country because, Bella Swoon, she travels to Forks, right, for 1,000 words in the first chapter, which is awful material, okay? So, you start basically with the interest, okay? And the interest is basically that. I don't have the particular word to it. It could be the inciting incident, but that would mean you always have to start at the inciting incident. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the interest of the main premise, okay? So, describe maybe the tension in the room as you enter the room of the king, okay? And that would mean it's a really beautiful, interesting, immediately, like, just pulls you in, right? This is not good because it really does not pull you in, does it? The main premise of this story is that this, witches, a coven of witches who want to destroy and win against the wizards, basically invade. And they invade at the worst possible moment, toward 200 pages into the story, which is awful. But number 3, these witches, it's really, really, really important to understand that we need to see the coronation. Start with the coronation, please. Everything else is irrelevant up to that point, because the witches attack during the coronation of this protagonist boy when he's becoming sort of the king, okay? So there you go. Just start there. The tension in the room. So this is not a good opening line, because what the heck is this morality dump? This book is so full of morality dump. It's been so long and I haven't even started beyond the first line. This is not good. This should have been chapter 1 of the story. Imagine writing 7 chapters of complete, utter nonsense until you actually arrive at the main premise of the freaking story. Anyhow, this is why it's a challenge, because you see, this is 231 pages, okay, of exposition dumps. There is nothing else. There's just exposition dumps for 231 pages until we arrive here. A better author would have done all of that in 20 pages. But those 20 pages would have been spread around the story, not literally 230 pages, okay? So chapter 8 is basically, we are very close to the coronation. Tristan stood rather uncomfortably on the raised dais, facing what he guessed to be at least 4,000 finely dressed people standing expectantly on the black and white checkered floor of the great hall. And he knew that there were thousands more waiting outside of the palace, with members of the royal guard gently but firmly holding them back. The great room smelled pleasantly of whatever that is, fresh cut flowers and anticipation. Anticipation. Let's go. This is chapter 1. Okay, first of all, the prose here is awful. The prose is the work of children, okay? Okay, it's the work of a teenager who will one day maybe become great, okay? In the case of the author, Robert Newcomb, that's it. He's an adult and he wrote this. So he peaked, and this is his peak. But it doesn't matter. This is a far better opening line. Imagine if this is where the story began. Instead of having to suffer 230 pages of literal dog shit, you get to read the story precisely from here. This is why modern fantasy is just better written. Modern fantasy is just better written in terms of structure, because modern fantasy begins here. Classical fantasy begins, not treble class, but at least 2 or 3 chapters before the inciting incident. Modern fantasy just starts at the inciting incident, which is why I think it's better. Anyway, it was late evening. The many lighted chandeliers and well, blah, blah, blah. So it goes on. He thinks, the time for my coronation is finally here, he thought solemnly. Oh my goodness, your thoughts are very weird. He glanced down at his cloak. If it is a king I must be, then it is a king of the common people that I shall strive to remain. Anyway, I suppose this is a salvation, okay? This is a salvation for the story, because at least there is some action here, okay? At least there is something good, okay? So I hope that you enjoyed this video. It was a very long dump. It was a very crazy dump. But yes, I hope that you enjoyed this. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.